Hey welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange, along with my co-host,
Carrie Strange.
We are doing something we haven't done since the beginning. This is our first guest in person with video. So we have Hot Rod Magazine Top 10 in 1986, couple covers in the same year of Hot Rod and Popular Hot Rodding. The Pinkless Sabre that we'll talk about was on the cover of Carcraft 3 times, featured in magazines all over the world, toured shows everywhere, and feature carved for many indoor shows. And we'll get to that on how that worked. That's a pretty good story right there. And even more crazy industry deals that just don't really happen anymore. Welcome tonight, Pro Street legend probably in his mind too,
has been
Rocky Robertson.
Hello.
So we are in the area. Our niece lives close to here.
Tim, the
And
camera's up
yeah,
there.
I keep looking over here.
He always gets in trouble.
And so we stop and see Rocky from time to time. Sometimes Carrie said, "Can I stop and see Rocky for 10 minutes?" No, because you'll be there for an hour.
Hard to get her to leave.
So we it's her. She just wants to stay here. And so here we are. This is a guy I'm going to put out there that years ago everybody was like, Rocky took you to his basement office? Was he a creeper or what? Rocky used to have a kickoff party the night before the Street Machine Nationals, because the Street Machine Nationals in Des Moines is
50 miles away.
Yeah. So people coming from the north or coming in early, you'd have a party at your house. The one year we got there kind of late because we had truck troubles and all these crazy things to get here.
Still made it.
Yeah. And so you took me, this was a different era. It was before social media.
Yes.
And probably even cell phones. And
yeah,
proposals and marketing
and
and promoting yourself was a little bit different then, but it's still the same principle now. And he showed me how he did marketing, how he got sponsors, the professional bound things that he did. And I still do things that Rocky taught me back then. So I want to thank you for that, taking some young. I was like 23, 24 years old. You were like 75 at the time. So, yeah. So
72.
So, so let's go way back to Little Rocky before we get into the Pro Street heyday stuff. How did you get into cars, hot rods, and all that? Because you're from, we're from north of here, but you're from small town, Southern Illinois.
Yeah, Southern Illinois, stock car racing. My dad drove stock cars. I had 2 siblings, brother and a sister. And a lot of times my dad would, with his buddies, and like I remember he raced with Dale Hale, and Dale had a son my age, and we would just ride right down into the stock car track, and they'd come over the loudspeaker and, get the kids out, and they'd open the gate, and we'd be up by the concession stands, up by the grandstands, and we'd just be up there playing, hanging on the fence, letting the mud hit us in the face. And that was just kind of the beginning of the love for cars, high performance.
So what kind of a car was he racing back then?
My dad, the earliest car I can ever remember him having was like an old Studebaker. And that's when I was real young. And then,
about what year was this?
This was probably about 64, 65. Okay. And then as I got older, he, did some late models. I still remember like a lot of the Southern Illinois track legends like Johnny Pryor and Ronnie Fisher and a lot of guys that I'd just like be down with my dad at their shop, who, like those 2 gentlemen in particular, later on when I started building cars, like Ronnie Fisher gave me full access to his stock car shop. Like being young, Ronnie I could use his sheet metal stuff and his bead roller, and it was a lot of people like that as I grew older that was really influential into helping me out and just put that put that desire and that hot rod, love for them, inside me.
So about what year and what was your first car that you ever got? Not even considered a hot rod, a driver or whatever. Do you remember what that was?
Very first car was a hot rod. A few months before I had my license, I had a 71 Nova SS, had a 4-speed in it, 350, pretty much stock when I got it. And then from there, it was just game on. I had the very first set of Fenton RT wheels, kind of the knockoff Kreger trick wheels, super tricks. Had the first set of RTs, and had those N5015s, those Kelly Springfields. And
about what year was this?
That was 1975.
Okay.
That was the year I was born.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I was out terrorizing the streets in my Nova.
So Rocky in high school, were you a jock?
I was a gearhead jock.
I am not surprised.
Yeah, I did both.
Yeah. What sports did you play?
Wrestled and football.
Not surprised. You didn't play volleyball?
Did you?
That's what we used
Was
to
it
play
like
in
real
student
wrestling,
gymnastics.
like on a team
No.
and competitions?
No,
or just
I
like the cheerleaders.
No, I really wrestled. I went undefeated my sophomore year, and then I worked at Kroger's grocery store, and I'd get off. I'd get out of school, go to football practice. After football practice, I'd go to work at Kroger's till like 9 o'clock, and then a couple nights a week I'd go up to Dobbs Bargain City and help stock shelves after they'd close. And then it was, either go home or go put headers on somebody's car or just whatever. But yeah, I always had a hot rod the whole time.
And if we jump out of order a little bit, there's pictures around in his shop that the grandkids are also athletes. Your kids were athletes. And,
yeah. My kids, I never wanted my boys to actually be in the automotive industry, but their love for cars is still there. Like my oldest grandson, he'll help me here in the shop. We've redid his truck, wheels, level kit. Me and him put new quarter panels on the truck, but yet he's still a real good college, baseball player. My youngest grandsons and my granddaughter, they're real into sports. But the neat thing about it is, like, even though, like, my one son's an attorney, he still, like, just last summer put, went and got a big old Harbor Freight motor and upgraded my granddaughter's go-kart. So, the love for the cars and the gearhead
and the hot rodding.
The hot rod is still deep in them. So, yeah.
But it's nice they've got real jobs. That's what they got a real job.
They do. They both have real jobs.
So, okay, you got the Nova, and I know that you drag raced. When did you start drag racing?
I started street racing no sooner as early as me having my license.
The same day you got your
Yeah, absolutely. And then we just started going down to the track. Another thing that I was real fortunate about is my whole neighborhood was like just concentrated with like probably 20-year-old gearheads. I mean,
it is a different time nowadays. We had muscle cars, and our high school had less than 200 people, and there was a dozen what I call hot rod muscle cars that drove when the weather was good.
Absolutely, everyone. I mean, our parking lot was like, I can remember Hazlitt's Mustang, Kent Plez's '69 Z car, and Frill's 65 Impala. All of us had gearhead. All my friends had gearheads.
But I mean, you had. You're at Roba, your school, you had some too, because I knew them guys too, and Steve Parkinson and a bunch of those guys had.
All of them had nice cars. Brian Mosby had a real nice Chevelle, but it was the guys right above me that, like when I was 16, it was like the 23, 24-year-old guys that were just I mean, when Interstate 64, not too far from us, before it was even open, like the guys from Belleville, Illinois they would like come down here on the interstate and not, and drag race, have like outlaw.
Before the interstate was all the
Before
way
it was
done.
even open.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And you know, and it was nothing for me to be like on a Saturday night, be in the back seat of David Lacey's Camaro. He'd have one slick in the trunk and one, slick, when it's one of the older guys would be in the front seat, I'd be sitting in the back seat, with the other slick. And I mean, and I mowed a lot of these guys' grass too. And so I was there pestering them, and they'd be putting intakes on their
So did you ever get paid?
For mowing grass?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
this was like reminding me of Daryl Starbird's story when he
No.
had that guy that always had Daryl doing all this work for him and he never got paid for it.
Yeah.
He'd go clean his car.
No,
Yeah.
like I mowed. Like some of the guys around the neighborhood, like Hauser and Rick Knox and Lacey and David Redmond.
What town was this that you
It's
were?
just Centralia, Illinois. And no, I mowed all their grass. I built me a little trailer and I pulled it with my riding lawnmower as I got older. That's how I made all my money. And like, I think I had 1 yard that paid $5, but my average yard was like $3
Wow.
to mow. Yeah. But that's the mowing the grass and working at Kroger's was what got me bought me my first car.
That seems to be, we ask everybody about their first job, and so far that's the biggest, unless they were a farm kid,
Right.
all the city kids, most of them, if their dad didn't have a gas station or a body shop, they worked at grocery stores. They
Yeah.
did. That was the thing.
I
So
worked at a Derby gas station as well, but the Kroger's paid a lot more than the gas station. Me running around there in my little overalls.
do you have any, remember it's slightly PG-13, do you have any stories knowing your personality? Like, oh, Rocky is the delivery person to all the good-looking ladies' houses. Like, did you have any stories of delivering groceries allegedly?
No, didn't deliver groceries, but I can remember being like a freshman and sophomore in high school pumping gas at the Derby gas station in the summertime. It was quite enjoyable. Because remember, it was full service.
Oh, okay.
Yep, full service gas station. So no, that was always a fun time.
So you were doing some drag racing, you get out of high school, then what? Did you graduate?
I did. Went almost a year to college. At that time, though, I'd already had the 64 Nova. I had started on the 69 that eventually became quite prominent. And
So that first Nova wasn't the one that you ended up building. Rocky's got this out of his personal museum.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had to had to check that out
Yeah.
out of the archives.
So
like
tell us about the first gen Nova that you had. I didn't know about that one.
Okay, well, so my first car was a 71, just basically hijackers and, and then I had quite a few Novas after that, but I built a real nice 64. And
That other person we interviewed a couple weeks ago, he had a first gen Nova too. What was his name? Scott's.
Sullivan?
Oh, yeah.
I guess
Sullivan.
it was a 67.
No, he had a first gen before.
Oh.
He had a 6.
Oh,
That's
did
what he
he?
drove. Yeah.
No, I had a real slick 64 that I built, and was in 78 was going to take it to the NSRA Street Machine Nationals in Tulsa. And we went down on the week before, we went down to Mount Vernon to street race. And we got down there, nothing really transpired of it at the parking lot. It didn't happen. And when we left to get on the interstate, as we come down the ramp, exiting out onto the interstate, another buddy of mine took off and didn't get to the end of the ramp. And cut off, and when I cut, he clipped my front fender and crashed it. So we ended up still going, which was my
Was he still a buddy after that?
Yeah. In fact, me and him went. He had a 64 Corvette, but it just did a little bit of damage on him, and we still went. That was my first national. I did a lot of car shows. That was my first national event.
And what year was that?
78.
Okay.
That was a year after high school.
Okay.
And but I built my.
Were you doing your own paintwork then too?
Oh yeah. I started working in body shops when I was a freshman in high school, and I built that 64. Originally it was stock, but then John Bechtel and the Carcraft, Danny Davis's Nova come out, and I fell in love with that car, and I mean, it was like gospel to me. And I actually ended up painting that car white and black. It was all white. I painted it white and black. I put the 3 stripes on it like Danny Davis's car. And he was Hooker's, Jim Hooker's, something, Hooker Headers? Danny is I think his dad owned Hooker Headers. They did a few months on hot rodding Danny's car. It was like a super stock car, and I just loved it. And then later on, we'll get to John Bechtel, who was the writer and the editor, and did that story with Danny for Carcraft. Later on, I got to meet JB, John Bechtel, to do my first photo shoot up in Michigan. So it kind of all come around, and then me and JB become really good friends. But yeah, I live those pages of the magazines just like a lot of other young people have over the years.
Yeah, we've talked about that on a lot of our other podcasts with the guests on, magazines are still big. There's a lot less than there used to be.
Right.
But to me, getting a magazine is still, I'm a magazine collector. It still means something to me and most all of my customers, almost more than winning some award, unless you're winning Street Machine of the Year, Street Rod of the Year, or Riddler, or something like that. But back then, the magazines, man, it was like, there was no car shows on TV. There was no Instagram with the instant gratification. Man, like I said that before. It was like my first car got in a magazine. 3 months later, I'm on my own. That's how much exposure getting in the magazine would bring to you. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, it just getting a magazine, like if you attended a show and just getting that magazine of the coverage of the show, hoping maybe in the background there's my fender. Yeah, that was
6th row back.
And I went to a lot of shows, Street Machine Nationals. I did the last year at Indy when the cops come out. I caught the end of that, and then I was.
What did you have there then that year?
I just.
Was that what? What year was that?
That was 80, because it was Street Machine in Springfield was 81, 80. Let's see, no. Springfield was 82, 83, 84. St. Louis was 85. Yep, yeah. Springfield, Illinois.
My first was St. Louis, 85.
85.
Took me down.
Yep. But I never met. I just went over there and a couple buddies in a car. We didn't. I didn't do any. I didn't have a car at the time for Indy that last year, which would have been 81, because then it was 82, 80. Yeah, it would have been 81 at Indy. I just drove over there for the day.
In the 3 years it was in Springfield, did you take the car to them?
I took. What I did at that time, I was heavy into the bracket racing, and I had the Nova, and I took.
Is that this Nova?
That's that Nova. Racing? Yep. I took that Nova in 82, 83. Yep. And then in 84, the weekend before, I blew it up at the drag strip, and I couldn't get it back together. And I took a little, I had a narrowed 72 Chevy truck that was my shop truck.
Shop truck was a Pro Street? Daily Pro Street.
Daily,
Yeah.
drove it every day. And it originally was an 8-foot bed truck. And I found a Chevy step side out in a farmer's field that was on a little trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought the bed from him. I hacked down my frame. I narrowed the 9-inch, did the truck. And then I got the bright idea, well, I'll put that 8-foot bed on that trailer frame. And I found a camper shell. And so I drove to 84 Springfield Street Machine Nationals, narrowed short bed Chevy truck, on a long bed with the camper, and then right behind the fairgrounds, that's where we camped all weekend. Did that. And I'm telling you, what went on at night, I mean, the road was covered in bleach and water. Them fools was bumper riding.
Yeah.
My cars were doing burnouts.
Yeah.
It was, well, and then that was the end.
Yeah, I remember
They run us out of there.
the year in St. Louis, the one and only year. It was in St. Louis. I was 14. My great uncle Jim took me to them and street ride shows and custom shows more out of town than my dad kind of did local stuff. And we were there all day. It was just like, we got up way early. I don't think we stayed overnight because 3.5 hours down, from home. Left home at probably 1 o'clock in the morning, got down there when the gates opened. My uncle liked to sit at the gate and watch everybody cruise in. And then me and my cousins were running around the shows. I remember we were there all day at Sunbird Man. And then at night, I think it was Saturday probably, we came down. And then as it got dark and all the shenanigans were starting, I was kind of a sheltered farm boy. I know that's hard to believe to people that know me now. But my uncle and my Aunt Mary
come out of his cage.
Yeah.
She's like, we need to get little Timmy home. So yeah, we didn't want to. So when the shenanigans out on the street started, I remember seeing a little bit of that, and the burnouts and the craziness, and then we boogied back to Galesburg. So.
Yeah, it was just madness. I mean, it went on all night, and kind of the same thing that had happened in Indy a few years prior. Then here come the red lights. I mean, it looked like the militia. Yeah. I mean,
we'll get to the DuQuoin era of stuff. Yeah. But you just can't explain. I mean, you can, but unless you were there, you don't get it. So, So you had this car. At St. Louis.
Had that at Springfield.
So did it look like this when you were racing it all the time, or did you quit racing it
I would
repaint
it before the Street Machine Nationals almost every year. It was white, and then the last couple of years it was
photos by the great Steve Reyes.
Yeah, Steve did it.
Yeah, he's a trip, man.
I had. There at the end, though, when I really started getting into the street machine, I had a set of glass doors that had Rocky Robertson and Sons on it. But then I had the solid. I did another set of doors that just made it all look like street trim. And that car,
like it had a fiberglass front end. So there's one picture here in Popular Cars magazine.
Yes.
The front end's off, and you guys are, who's there? Who's in the pictures with?
That was my buddy Mark Barrow, and then that was me with hair. And this was the car. This was the car that went to the Street Machine Nationals. This is how it looked in '85, and the car run 930s.
Wow.
So it was.
What was the chassis underneath of that?
All tube frame, 2x3 though. We did that car made evolutions.
Was it a strut front?
We originally, so this car is the car that I learned to build. I had a local chassis builder down here that was really good. His name was Larry Lanzik. And I would go down and Larry taught me how to build, how the race car part of it. Mm-hmm. And in turn, Larry would help me. I would learn and do all of it. And then I would paint Larry built some cars and I'd do the paint work on Larry's cars. When we first did that, Larry built his own strut. He had made a real cool strut, but drag racing, we just didn't like the way the car was leaving. And we ended up going back to we took the struts off of it in probably about the winter of '84, and we went to an A-arm, and I mean, that car worked. It carried the wheels about 6 inches off the ground, about 10 or 12 feet, and I mean, it would just run like a rocket ship. And I did real well.
That's a stout car for that era.
Yeah.
You know, I remember our buddies. Our goal was to run a 12.9 to get kicked out because that's when you had to have a 4-point cage in it.
Yeah.
My Chevelle before I built it, I never raced it when I built it with a tunnel ramp. Never even came close, man. Never. But yeah, we had like one buddy that I think it might have been T. Parkinson or the guy with the El Camino, the big block El Camino. One of them from Rova, like high school drags, they got sent home because they ran a 12.9, and it was just like, woo! But now you can damn near buy a minivan to run a 12.9. You know,
a Tesla will run a 9 is what they tell me. But,
yeah.
But I only run quarter mile a few times. I think the car would have went a lot faster quarter, but it was set up for I run 8th mile Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at all my local tracks, and it would run 590s. So
what was your local tracks that you ran back then? And is any of them still open now?
Benton. So I'd run Friday night at Harrisburg, which is about a 100-mile trip. I would run about 65 miles as I-57, which is still open in Benton, Illinois.
That's the one where during DuQuoin Street Machine Nationals,
they went over
Friday night fun runs and stuff like that.
Still do. And then on Sundays, I would go over to Peevely, Missouri, which is still a stock car track there, but the drag strip's no longer there. But just last year, they started a I-55 reunion. And a lot of the old timers that used to race the I-55 drag strip, they go over there now. And in fact, they had it a couple weeks ago. I should probably go over there. So I raced there a lot of Sundays with that car.
So after that Nova, were you running your shop full time by then?
I had a shop down in Irvington, Illinois, is where I lived. Yeah.
And so you were running your full time shop. How old were you at that time?
20, 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about when I
had
started.
Had two little boys.
And what was the most of work that come through your shop at that time?
I had back then I painted all the cast potato chip trucks. I painted all the Pepsi-Cola trucks.
The body shop I worked at in high school, we had for the local Pioneer seat plant.
Yeah.
We did all the repairs on there.
Yeah, I did all the Pepsi-Cola and we would fix. They always had fixed front fenders on the trucks, and because they'd always be broke.
That was a good account to have.
Except that they wouldn't pay me for 120 days, which was you know. But yet they'd drop off a case of soda for the soda machine out there, and I had to whip out that $8.
Hey, that right then.
And they'd owe me $7,500 for 120 days. But I was in a little town that kept the doors open, and it was nice but it was all Imron back then. Mm-hmm. No wraps, guys, no wraps. It was all Imron and stencils.
Wow.
With activator, and paint the truck white, and we could turn them in a week. Paint the truck white, stenciled up, paint the burgundy like on the Dr. Pepper and the red, and So, and then I did crash work too.
Yeah.
How big was your shop?
It was a great big building. It was about 30 by 50 or so, and I had it all open so I could work on them big trucks.
And how many people did you have?
Two guys.
Wow, that's impressive.
We painted a bunch. This guy named Ronnie Fisher was one of my stock car guys I mentioned earlier. He started a company that they built trucks with beds that would move mobile homes. And they built this hitch that could go all different ways. And we would paint those beds for his trucks. So we had some accounts that really, and it really did pay.
I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but almost like some guaranteed.
Always
coming through the door.
But those commercial accounts really helped me finance what my drag racing and all that to be able to do what I wanted to do.
So drag cars, did you just keep racing this Nova?
I did. Here's where the street machine story really comes into play. So I took that car. I was really getting into the street machine cars, the street events, the major events.
Because that's back when Pro Street was just.
It just started.
Yeah.
So when I went in 78 out to, and I've got a picture of it, in 78 at the Street Machine Nationals out in Tulsa, and again, this was an NSRA event, not the Peterson Publishing. I've seen about 3 cars out there that had narrow rear ends, and one of them was a little white 64 Chevy 2 that like what I had back at home. And I just couldn't believe it. I just found my way back to that car. Like,
I love first gen Nova. I mean, like all Novas. I love first gen Nova. She's on a wagon kick. I picture her if she's ever nice enough to me to get in her car built, because she's never really paid the labor bill on her Corvair. I would like a first gen Nova wagon. I think one of those would be pretty.
It would. There's some cool ones out there. I think you'd want to lengthen the door and do like Wayne Bushy's. You'd 2-door it.
Yeah.
You'd have 2-door it. But yeah, and I don't know that I've ever really.
She's like, look at her look on her face. She goes, she wanted a stock Corvair, and then she got a full chassis car. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know who she is anymore.
Yeah. What have you done with Carrie? But so in '85, I took the Nova over to the Madhouse that we called Street Machine Nationals in St. Louis, and that's where I had seen. It was my first glimpse of Matt Hayes' Oldsmobile Sierra.
Oh, okay.
And why
I didn't figure out the time zone of when certain heavy hitter cars were out. So that was.
And when you went prior to '85, you would see a new Camaro, maybe a newer Camaro. You'd see a Pinto, but there was tons of Pintos. There was tons of Ford Mavericks. There was tons of Novas.
Vegas and all
Vegas.
that.
It was the typical bunch, and and there was quite a few.
And a lot of them were probably, I bought a used race car from somebody.
Yeah, most likely, yes. But and then Mr. Roboto was at the '85 Street Machine. So it was Mr. Roboto from California.
That was the black 3rd gen
yes,
Camaro.
Yeah. Yep. And that was a brand new car. But Matt's car I had such an attraction to Matt's car was because being with Larry and learning how to do chassis work and being at the drag strip all the time, we would go to like the U.S. Nationals. And back then, I mean, we're talking 1985, Larry would be under Bob Glidden's car with a tape measure. And I'm not kidding. We would be looking at like rear ends.
Somebody's looking for a lookout before they catch you and throw you out of the pit.
But here's another thing. About that same time was a local Southern Illinois legend, Buddy Ingersoll. Okay, Buddy had just got his Buick deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
he ran V6s in Pro Stock for all those years.
He did. And Larry actually designed the intercooler. So when I'd be down at like Lamzig's chassis shop, and I'd be down there, and there'd be Buddy's car or whatever. And then
where was Buddy Ingersoll from? I forgot he was an Illinois guy.
Well, down around Harrisburg or Marion, just West Frankfort. But really, the only Buddy would show up on Saturday nights to Benton, but just like he never. I can't ever really remember him like getting in the bracket in the actual race, but he would do test hits and stuff. But like I was at the U.S. Nationals that year when he just cleaned everybody's clocks, and they all got mad but the thing was you could buy a brand new full-size Regal with a turbocharged V6 in it. You sure couldn't buy a Camaro or a Ford Mustang with a 500-inch mountain motor, but they pretty much got him outlawed.
Yeah.
So, but like and then Warren Johnson's car. So when I seen Matt's car, that was the first of that newer front wheel drive body style, and I just went nuts over it. I'd come away from that. My car had just come out, or Steve Reyes had just shot it for Popular Hot Rodding. And he said, I can't put it for sale in there. He said, they won't let me do that. But at the end of that article, it's been years since I read it, but he mentioned that I was going to move on to build another car. And it wasn't 3 weeks later, my car was off to Willard, Ohio, to another guy his name was Rocco. And he come down and bought my car so I could help fund.
Did Rocco have like chest hair and a gold chain?
Yeah. As far as
every Rocco that I've met has been like
Let me tell you, he raced that car for years. It was in National Dragster a lot. He raced it up at Norwalk, Ohio. But with that being said, I started looking for a front-wheel drive car, and I almost built a Pontiac with all them plastic bumpers and a Grand Am. I didn't like that. But I really loved that Somerset because of the taillights in the back. When I was 14, 15 years old, a guy named Blumps Williamson used to drive his like 67 Cougar, teal color, Kreger SS's. And when he'd pull out of the McDonald's parking lot, those lights would just go beep, beep, beep. That's all across the back of the car. So that was how I got the Somerset. When I got the Somerset, then
that's this car right here.
That's that car.
Cover of Hot Rod.
I called Buddy Ingersoll, and I said, hey, I got a new Buick I'm wanting to do for a pro street car, and do you think I'd have any luck?
How'd you get the body?
I bought it at a salvage yard, $1,300.
So it was a wrecked car.
Wrecked front end car. Yep. And I went up and got it, brought it back, and told Buddy what I was doing, and he gave me the phone number for the head of Buick Special Products. So what was going on at the time, though? This was middle of '80, probably May, June of '86. Like Buick was sponsoring Budweiser, the Budweiser King, Kenny Bernstein, Larry Torres was tearing it up. Like Buick really didn't have a Buick performance and all that because they wanted to keep the image of, you step up to a Buick. So their division, it was kind of an outlaw division called Buick Special Products. And Buddy gave me the name that who was helping him. And I can't remember his last name. His first name was Ron. And I called him. I told him what I was doing. He said, put me a package together so that I don't think that you're just wanting to fix your wife's wrecked car. And he said,
is this like the first time you started doing the proposal stuff?
That's when I started doing the proposal. In fact, that right there was probably my first proposal because I had to get something together to send to Buick to tell them what I wanted to do. So I got what articles.
And this is different. It's not like, hey, I'm reaching out to try to get some free plug wires or something.
Oh yeah, no, I wanted major.
Yeah.
I wanted some cool stuff and sheet metal really. So what I found out later on was that it was shot down. That then Ron took it and the powers to be said no. And then later on, who was ahead of my project was the guy right under Ron, was a guy named by the name of Bob Cross. And Bob told me this later on. And Bob called me one day, and I was told that he said, look, we're going to help this kid. If he, it looks like he's.
How old were you then when you were doing this car?
That was 86. So that would have been, 40 years ago?
Okay.
So I was 24 then.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm 65 now, so that's what I'm guessing. And Yeah, that picture that was taken in November. That was actually taken about 2 weeks after the Street Machine Nationals of '86. So that was taken in August of '86. So what's that? 40 years ago.
Yeah. I was pretty in high school, so I can't do math.
Right.
So.
But then he called. So I got that. So I packaged all this up. I sent pictures of my Nova in this little, proposal thing and all that. And then Ron called me one day and he goes, "Hey, we're gonna help you out." And but he said, "What motor are you putting in it?" And I said, "Well, probably a big block Chevy." He goes, "We'd really like to have a Buick motor."
Mm-hmm.
And I just told him, I said, "Ron, I can't. I just can't afford to build a Buick motor." I said, "I don't have no." He said, "Well, what if we take care of the parts? Can?" I said, that sounds great. I'm all on board with that." And he goes, "Well, would you have any?" He goes, "Would you? Well, what do you think about putting a new Grand National motor in it?" And I just like we had real phones then.
Yeah.
And I was like, picked the phone. I was like, "Are you talking about a turbo V6?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, and I said, "That would be awesome." I was like, "Yeah, I would love to do that." And he said, "Okay." He said, "That's what we'll do." And about 2 weeks later, man, I have a big old semi pulling up, dropping off a brand new Grand National motor.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was real awesome. So when I was busting butt trying to get the car built, and
So full chassis car,
full chassis,
struts.
yeah.
That struts on it.
Well, then that's when I started. I was like, well, this wasn't so hard reaching out to Buick. So I started.
You went to the top, and you're like, "I can get here. I can go anywhere."
And man, I'm telling you, I started packaging up stuff, and my wife was typing out stuff, and I was mailing this off, and man, here come the center lines. And once I said I had Buick Motor Company working with me,
Yeah.
I mean, here come MSD, an auto meter.
It's like the same thing. At Christmas Eve, our good friend does all the big country music videos. He was just filming a movie for Warner Brothers. He goes, once you get either that one name actor or the one name producer or the production house, then he goes, man, then it just starts rolling.
The only problem I really had on everybody was willing to help once I kind of told them what I had going on, but the Nova, like getting that cover shot of the Nova, that gave me credibility
because you had already proved yourself.
Exactly.
At that, yeah.
And I photocopied them and sent those in. The only real big, like even though I had people saying that they would help, I was just like these television shows are now, like building a car. Like I was under the gun because to be at the Street Machine Nationals, that was the Super Bowl. And I was blasting ass trying to get this car built. And it was nothing for me to have an $800 phone bill. Call in California, call in New York. Yeah. I mean, really.
Yeah. Wow.
$800 was probably my house, but my average phone bill was $500 or $600. Just, hey, have you shipped that stuff, or let's talk about it, or whatever. Because
so obviously here in this, you got some help from nitrous oxide.
Oh yeah.
Autometer, comp cams, Manley, B&M.
Yep. Shifter of B&M, full nitrous system from NOS.
So this is the car. It was fuel injection. So this is the car you've told me the story about the bundle. Is this the car we talk often that had the bundle of wires?
Oh
and
yeah.
You cut them and then.
Oh. So,
yeah.
So you were asking about a horror story. Well, I mentioned one, and we'll talk about that later. But a mini one was, so now it's probably May. Well, I'll tell you what, it was May. It was early May.
And Street Machine Nationals was always the last weekend.
Third weekend of June.
Third weekend of June. So
here's this nightmare. So the car's almost done. I've got the car almost all together, and it's all wiring and electronics. So Buick pulls their top engineer from time week or practice week from the Indianapolis 500.
Wow.
Okay. They put him in a rental car. They put him in a rental.
Do you remember? I'm on Indy 500. Who was running the Buicks back then? I know
Roberto Guerrero.
And John Menard carried on that into the 2000s of the Buick V6.
Yeah.
So,
But Roberto Guerrero was the I remember the big one. So they pull this. They put this engineer. They pull him from time week over at Indy. They put him in a rental car. I start getting some packages from Buick from Flint. And it's just more fun. I'm like I open this stuff and I was like, this is more of a mess. I've got this mess, and
just more wires and
just
more wires
tons of wiring harnesses. And he shows up, and he has and this is the truth. People don't believe this. It was about that tall, and it went 24 feet and about 2 foot down the side of my garage. We had it pinned into the drywall of a wiring harness. And what they sent, because since he didn't know what I had left, was I had a full Somerset, which was a 4-cylinder front-wheel drive vehicle, wiring harness, and I had a new Grand National wiring harness. And when that car was done, every blinker worked, the digital dash, everything worked on that car. Everything. Blinkers worked by the factory deal, and like all of it worked. And it just.
That's amazing.
But the wiring was just a nightmare. It just went everywhere. And I took it to DuQuoin, and the minute I come.
Was that the first year of DuQuoin?
That was the first year of DuQuoin.
Okay.
It was supposed to be in Michigan. And then about 2 months before, it's like I would have never probably made it if it would have still been up in Wisconsin or Michigan or wherever it was going to be. But we got it done.
And if people never been to DuQuoin in the heyday,
no.
The fairgrounds, now
Beautiful.
It's not. I think they're getting ready to close. Actually, the state's going to close the grounds, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
But man, back then, I have been to fairgrounds all over the country. Back in the heyday of the DuQuoin, Southern Illinois State Fairgrounds, it's the best fairgrounds in the country.
I've been to,
like in the heyday, it was what?
Every one of them.
Over 4,000 cars, 100 and some thousand, 5,000 cars.
They limited it at 5,000.
Hundreds of thousands of people come through there. And you had the car show area, you had the vendors, and then the party people up in the hills. This didn't fill half of the fairgrounds if you counted all the hills. Ski jumping exhibition. It was the most amazing fairgrounds I've ever been to.
And pristine back then. Yeah. And it was new. See, what happened, the reason why it went back to Illinois and they signed off on it is because the state had just bought that fairgrounds and they wanted an event for it. See, so then that's when it was kind of catch-22 because they had just run us out of the state of Illinois, Springfield, 2 years earlier, but they needed an event down there.
But when it was in St. Louis, it was technically still in Illinois.
It still was in Illinois,
barely out of
which was nowhere near enough room.
Yeah.
And then that's when that's got a story in itself because someone was killed there, and that's when the attorneys for Peterson Publishing come in and said, hey, just because you're needing a good place to do photo shoots and features, we don't need this kind of liability of this just chaos. So that's when Peterson sold the event to Special Events. That's what went down. And then Special Events, that was the first year DuQuoin.
Okay.
So that's how that come to be. But back to me pulling in with the Somerset, I pulled down there at the Somerset that Saturday morning, and the first one on it was Jeff Smith, and it went crazy. Because I come pulling up there like it sounded like someone was, Kawasaki with the V6 and the Super Trap, and all that.
And power parks. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Rocky wrote the book on power parking. Yeah. Just pull in and just stop.
Wherever
And
you
you
want.
always are late. I actually did that at the Triple Crown this year with Bubbles. If you notice, I come pulling in there about noon, and the crowds went crazy. It works. It's my signature move.
If you don't have to be there by a judging thing. Which
Yeah.
we'll get to that story
Yeah,
later.
that's
on.
true. So true. So true.
So, okay, you go, and how many photo shoots did you get that weekend at the coin?
Well, I
It was
really learned my
Nitro and Hot Rod and
Yeah.
Carcraft. And
They
event
actually
coverage
can.
and
There's an article there with Jeff.
Jeff talking about him
Yeah.
and the future of Pro Street.
Well-
That's a guy that he does the Car Guy Confessions with Steve Stroke.
Yep.
I know a lot of people give him credit, but I don't think Jeff Smith gets enough credit for what he has done for this industry, the magazines, the tech articles, all that stuff that he's done.
Jeff's
He's
been
done
around a
lot of
long
stuff.
time, and I think he'd be the first to tell you that Jeff's prominence went hand in hand with the pro street cars, is because when Jeff was at Carcraft, and then that's right then when that era,
Just
when pro
exploded.
street took off,
Yeah.
and like Jeff wanted those. I mean,
You even had this car in the high school parade.
I drive it everywhere.
You
Yeah, that
hauled
was
the homecoming queen that made
setting out of the sunroof.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
you be surprised if anything else did?
Of
Yeah.
course not. Of course not.
Yep, I did.
But that car just did it. Not that I really care, but just did it win any awards that weekend, or was it too far
It
out
won.
of people's grasp?
So what I tell you, I really learned the politics of
What?
of big car shows that weekend.
No.
And not so much at just making a mistake, because I'd always went to the car shows and just did whatever.
Mhm.
Well, the minute I got out of the pro street competition, which I got killed on my wiring, was one thing that like killed me. I got like a 2 out of 10 on my wiring, but I got third in the
And it was probably the only fuel injected car in
yeah, and
Yeah.
it didn't have a
They didn't
blower
know.
sticking out of it
Yeah.
that everybody was like, "Where's the blower?" You know,
Yeah, you had. This is the era. This is right before the era of, hey, let's put 17 blowers and superchargers and stuff. But blower
There's
motors,
my hood.
everything. Yeah, flat hood with just a couple little divots of the turbo to stick out.
right.
So that was just nuts.
But what I did was, as soon as the pro street was competition, I went out in the back 40 with Marlon Davis and did photo. My car literally was not on the fairgrounds all Saturday afternoon. So it killed me on the boats, I always felt. But it still got runner-up, best street machine.
Yeah, but it had all this. You were making history, getting in.
Oh,
like I said,
yeah.
getting in print. It's
Yeah. So then later on, we did this at, I can't remember actually who did this, but that's a 4-page spread over at St. Louis. We rented, Hot Rod rented,
back when the magazines had budgets.
they rented
Yeah.
Milan, Michigan for a day.
Yeah.
And we did, that car got like 21 miles a gallon and run.
And it said it ran a low 12 and 115.
Yep.
And this was built to be a show car. It wasn't like you've been doing launches and you probably
Yeah.
could have played with that and got another second and a half.
Mickey Thompson sent me slicks though, and this was for Carcraft at St. Louis, up in Milan, Michigan. On nitrous, we got it to go 1020s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, it flew.
Yeah. And then of course the bigger here is your copy of your letter from Harry Hibbler, at that time the publisher of Hot Rod Magazine. Congratulations. Your car's been voted one of the 10 best cars for 1986 by Hot Rod Magazine.
Yep.
And that, I mean, they don't do top 10s anymore. They quit doing that in
Right.
the T-ball era, so they don't offend everybody. But I mean, there's been a lot of historic cars in the top 10 and a lot of historic cars that didn't get in there, and cars of the year and everything like that. But Hot Rod Magazine top 10, and it didn't get anything better than that at that
Not
time.
really.
Not.
It's set. Hot Rod blew up. So what was neat was when my article come out for Hot Rod. They blew it up. You know, we went up to, so 2 weeks, to back up a little bit. So just 2 weeks after I debuted it at Street Machine Nationals, they blasted us up for a week to Michigan, and we did the 3-day photo shoot for the cover. And then a few months later, we were at SEMA show, and it was set up with in the Buick booth, and then just 2 booths down was Hot Rod, Peterson Publishing, and they blew the cover up like 3x5, which was really cool. And then everybody in the whole SEMA show was carrying a copy of that magazine with my car on the cover.
So yeah, that's crazy to go to the SEMA show. Was that your first car taking to SEMA? In the Buick, in a huge manufacturer's booth. That's
huge.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, and I'm right there with Larry Torres, Kenny Bernstein,
Yeah.
Kel Yarborough.
Yeah.
I like all of them. I was hobnobbing with everybody that was Buick Special Products.
So this is a little trinket that even back then you were entry number 1. How did you ever get entry number 1? And for years, I remember the other pink car here that you had all the entries. Every Street Machine special event show you went to, you were entry number 1. How did that happen to start the first time?
Well
then, or was that the next year? Then you were on the license plate.
So, just who you knew.
What did you say about politics earlier?
Yeah. I just Susan Davis had
that was her last name.
I'm ratting you out, Susan.
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 What's Susan doing now? She was awesome.
I'm friends with her on Facebook. I seen her like do a Merry Christmas thing. She come to that reunion back in 2013, but Susan was just a sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got along with all let me tell you, those people at the time, they knew what the draw was at those shows, and they really worked with me and Matt and just all of us and helped us out. But now this was in '88. This was the state license plate that with special product or not Buick special product, with the car show company worked with the state, and the state of Illinois has a program. They have big events that they'll do a license plate to promote it.
Show that to the camera, Tim.
Yeah. And what that was, that come out a few years later in '88, and they did like 200 of them, and I got, I don't know, plate 56 or something. But I wrote a letter to the governor, Secretary of State, and told him that was my car. I lived in Illinois, as you can see the letter. Yeah. And he sent me, I have that original.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so.
They talked to you as a Mr. Robertson.
I was kind of official back then.
Congratulate for taking Best of Show last year's Street Machine Nationals, being awarded Best General Motors car, second Best of Show. Yeah, that's how big this show was to the state back then. The amount of people, it's like Louisville is still huge for the Street Rod Nationals.
Absolutely.
They get a lot of people there. They get more cars. They get 8,000-9,000 cars consistently. There's been 12,000, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that come. But the crowd and the rock star persona of the Pro Street guys back then, it's never been seen since. It'll never be seen again.
No.
I mean, back then, it was like seriously, when you guys rolled in, I remember this next car we're going to talk about, when it rolled in the first year, I stood for 25 minutes to try to get a clear picture with my camera. So I was always a picture nerd.
It was always 10D.
And it was like John Force at the drag races.
Absolutely.
It seriously was. I mean, you and Matt and Robertson.
They were like the first influencers.
Yeah, I hate the word influencers,
I hate that
but
word
they
too.
were. Everybody's like, oh, what
were
do
the
these
real
guys got
influencers.
this year? And, then you guys would do these cars. This one had been changed a little bit. Instead of building a new car, it's like, oh, let's change the paint or let's change the wheels.
Well, that come from me not going to take it back for the third year.
Yeah.
I just didn't want that. Yeah. That's a little later on story, but yeah, that's the reason why the paint got changed.
So the V6 car, what happened to it? Here's an ad. You were trying to sell it, obviously.
So
where did I find that? It was back here.
I took it up to I took it up to Indiana, the Cruise International Car Show, Auburn, Indiana.
Yep.
And
We sold some cars there.
a millionaire Cuban from Florida bought
Was his name Rocco too?
No,
No.
I can't remember what about a year later I seen him on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. But,
Oh wow.
Yeah. And but I basically had to sell the car to finance the next car.
Yeah, that's what we've always had to do too.
Yeah. So I would love to.
So how did this next car come about?
Well, the next car come about because within no time, Buick was where I had to beg and do the
What can we do? What can we send?
yeah, they were like, we want you to build another car. And I was like, I'm on board. And they're like, we have a new LeSabre T-Type coming out. And I hadn't even seen one, so sent me pictures. And before the car even come out, the T-Type edition, they had taken like an 86 or 7, a white one that had a sunroof in it. And they used that so that they could take pictures for the showroom magazines, where you went in. And they painted it black. They put the prototype interior and everything in it. I actually had my body in my car before they ever went on the assembly line. So
basically what the drag race guys, the body in white.
I got the body in
body.
white.
You didn't have to buy a wrecked car.
Nope, got full car.
And that happened from then on out to a lot of pro street builders. They were getting bodies in whites and stuff. But this is like the first one that I remember.
Yeah, I had the first, so to where before was just help with sheet metal and some stuff like that, and Buick did help me to go to shows and some stuff, some things they wanted me to go to. Then I got a full onboard factory sponsorship, which was unheard of for basically a hobby. It was, let's face it, a hobby, but it was a big hobby.
So this car, another V6, stack injection. I always remember the Mad Ball balls.
Yeah, that went on. That to this day, people and that just all come from my little boys having those damn Mad Balls, and I like.
There was a local guy from here that has a TV show, and I was on his Pro Street episode.
Okay.
He put Mad Balls on it.
Did he?
In the scoops, yeah.
But
this car here, strut front end, the craziest thing at that time was there was only like 2 guys that I remember. You built, why did you think it's just got a full round 2 stainless, polished stainless chassis and all the welds are dressed?
I copied off Rick Robertson.
Yeah. How many hours did it take to dress a weld out?
The only weld that I kept any time on, any time on, was I did a swing out sidebar, and I had 103 hours in the swing out sidebar.
Of dressing the welds or the fab?
All from the fab, the welding.
Were you dressing all that, or were you having your little boys in here I did finish 3 welds before you go?
No, I didn't. I did that whole chassis myself. There towards the end, I had guys helping me with the polisher and stuff. But the problem that I had was you would weld it, and just like for the guys that do body work, you get a pinhole, you take a little glaze and you fill a little pinhole.
Yeah.
Well, I could have it smoothed all the way down to say 600 grit, and a pinhole would pop up. You got to take the welder and re-weld it.
Yeah.
And then you're back to 36 grit, 80.
Well, most of this chassis, did you MIG stainless it or TIG stainless?
I welded, I MIG'd all of it.
MIG stainless.
I MIG'd it,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I stared and stared at this picture here of you. You can't see it very well, but on the chassis table of you building the chassis there. It's like, I always just love construction pictures.
Yeah, I've got some real cool.
That shop there just seemingly is a lot smaller than it looked in pictures.
It's just 2-car garage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2-car end to end,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Totally 2-car garage.
Yeah, that feature right there. I wore
And I've got some
magazine
cool
out
construction video pictures of that, of when the car was all in black. It looked pretty bad.
A lot of you guys, Pro Street guys, Street Machine guys, seen that. Looks a little bit different now. You do still own that car.
I still, yeah.
And but yeah, so tell us about. It was just Rockstar. Here it is. We talked about this before we went live. The Hot Rod would always do like a rodding at random, and then talk about industry stuff or news or
Right.
somebody's new product. And this right here
There you go.
Yeah, that's
was this year 1988 Pro Street Cars debut. Your car, the Scott Sullivan 55, and the twin blown, also flat hood car, the pink T-Bird of Matt and Debbie Hayes.
Right.
That is like
and me
a
and
trifecta of Pro Street cars there.
me and Matt, neither one knew what color we was painting the cars.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell sponsors what I was doing to the car.
Yeah.
I mean, because you just didn't want it to get out. And when me and Matt showed up at both at 88 at DuQuoin, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was like it was, and I basically painted my car pink because of the Willys, the 40 Willys Coupe that was in a lot of the magazines at Canfield.
Okay.
Was real, and I just liked that pastel color.
Mm-hmm.
And I mixed.
I wish colors would come back in hot rodding. Everything is earth tones and metallics.
Yeah, it probably will.
It'll come back.
It always does.
I mean, Carrie drives a light. We have 2 purple cars.
Yeah.
That's why I did pink for our 30th anniversary sweatshirts. Bright pink.
Well,
Comes
even shorts and that kind of stuff is,
Yeah.
those.
Mullets are back.
Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on the
They
mullet.
didn't go anywhere, and they've always been there for some people.
For some people, yeah. Your cousin Matt. Yeah, I don't have a mullet, but it's in the family of a mullet. No, Matt, you got the most
You got a
glorious mullet ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, side opening trunk, lift off hood, polished stainless chassis, stack injection, fuel injection.
The side
And
opening.
the have to muffler for the day of Pro Street cars, the super traps. You could, if a car drove by right now and we could hear it, we wouldn't know if it had super traps on it. It's got the most weird sound that you've ever heard.
So, Super Stock magazine, I think, with a race car magazine. I believe it was called Super Stock. It was one of those magazines that had dirt cars in it. Mm-hmm. And I saw an ad for Super Trap, and they had been on motorcycles, but this ad was that I guess they've started putting them on some modified race cars to keep the noise down. Mm-hmm. And anyway, and I saw this small ad in one of the magazines, and I reached out. I believe the guy's name was Mark Liebert, and I just called him one day out in California and said, hey, I actually had it. I had it the second year on my Somerset, and I said those things are really really cool or whatever. I'd like to put one on my street car, and few conversations. He actually, the first year Super Trap showed up at Street Machine Nationals was in '87. The year I didn't put him on, the second year, the Buick Somerset. He shipped product down to my shop. I hauled it to DuQuoin, mm-hmm. and he rented some stuff from the event down there, and he set up. And from then, I mean, he credited me with thousands of dollars in sales. Like even Matt put them on his car. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of something that I started with the whole Super Trap deal.
That was your first one.
That's Lori.
Yeah.
Yep.
She, me and my buddies, we thought she was about as good as your car was. So, yeah. Of course, pink bikini top had the color.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I have a picture. There's plenty of you like pink running shorts on too.
I would.
Yeah.
Pink shorts and pink Oakley sunglasses.
Yeah. So here you did ISCA. I collect magazines, and it was the Hot Rod Show World ISCA. Each year they put out a magazine, and they do a photo shoot with usually a Playboy model or something with them, and it was in there. So you debuted this car. It's had a few sets of wheels on it. It had the normal round hole welds, and then you showed it like that. And then the next year you put the 5-spoke with the painted the centers. So here you're doing ISCA. When did you start doing the feature cars? You get paid for a weekend to come show up. You did that quite a bit.
Well,
that was with that car eventually.
Yeah, out of Detroit, actually, one way or another reached out to me. I think they reached out to, GM Performance Parts was one of the sponsors, and Championship Auto Shows got a hold of Buick, and then that kind of all come to be. And then in the winter of '88, they leased, they worked a deal, and they did my car they come by and picked it up, and they did 16 shows over the winter.
And you got paid so much a show.
Yep, I got.
One of our early interviews, we did Jack Walker.
Okay.
Jack Walker, a custom lead sled guy, and he got doing that, and he might have been the guy that hauled the car because he ended up getting a stacker trailer. He had cars that he leased them to. Well, then he was a truck driver, so he made the extra money for the delivering. And I know he hauled Tucci's and Ida's cars through the years. I don't know if he was hauling quite yet then.
I've got the names. There was an older guy and a younger guy, and actually the guy that hauled it actually, once everything he'd haul like 3 cars, and then they'd help and then he would sell airbrush shirts.
Yeah, that wasn't Jack.
Yeah, so that was him. But they actually both of what I call the roadies, the haulers. They had airbrush shirts with a picture of the Buick, and then had all the shows on the back. But the shirt had an airbrush picture of my Buick and said, "F this Buick." They hated it.
Yeah,
they hated it because it sat so low.
I bet it was a pain in the ass.
Oh, they absolutely.
This was before Air Ride.
Yeah, they absolutely hated my car. Yeah. And but I told I told them they wanted to send me a check every week, and I said I don't want it. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I want paid at the end." I'm like, that money ain't gonna mean, I'll blow it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the deal, I got a nice big check, and I just finished.
That paid pretty good. Jack opened up and told us that I don't know.
I think I got like $1,000 a show.
Yeah, well, he was hauling and I don't know, and expenses and everything. He was doing. Go back and listen to Jack Walker one, but he was getting paid very well. So I mean, he sold his business, semi-retired, and that's what he did for like a long time. He hauled the cars. But
then so they took the car, they took the Buick the first year, and then the next year I did probably 15 more shows in markets myself, and then the third year, Pat Martin. He, that did the outdoor shows, Pat took my car and a couple other cars, and he went down and did all the southern, like Florida shows and all that with it. And then I was hauling, at that time, I was hauling the Kaiser.
I couldn't remember his name. I remember big guy, always wore those crazy colored pants.
That was Pat Martin.
Yeah. He passed a couple years ago.
He did. Yeah. Pat was really good. He couldn't have been a better person for the participants.
And was this year 2 when you changed the wheels to the drag stars and painted them pink in the middle?
Yep. The story on the drag stars was Greg Weld called me, and I had the drag lights on the car, and Greg said, "Hey, we want to put a new wheel on your car," and he said, "But you can't put them on till whenever." Because he had sold the business a couple of years to like Kreger or somebody. Weld did. It was all during that configuration, and his no compete clause wasn't over to a certain.
Oh, okay.
But I had those wheels before he was allowed to sell them. And
so was that the first car that was publicly had that wheel on it?
Yeah.
And then I have no idea how many. That was like. It's got to be one of the top 5, top 10.
You look on
the next under highest sold wheel has to be
those
the American 5-spokes and the Weld drag stars.
Yeah. And
and the rod light, or what were they called? Not rod light. What'd you call them?
Drag lights.
Yeah, the
and
round
I
hole
still
ones,
love
man.
those.
They're still. I was actually looking for my OBS truck to set up.
Weld was a company that was so good to me because way back that first year, like when I said the wiring was real bad on the car, well, I got nailed on some other stuff too. Like the set of wheels. Well, like when I come away from that show, besides doing the wiring, like the next year, my wheels were bead locked on back and front, were polished on back and front.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had stainless bolts in the bead locks.
Yeah.
I mean, and Weld always just took such good care of me.
Yeah, there's tons of magazines. I mean, you couldn't hardly find a Street Machine magazine around the whole country that car wasn't featured in then.
Yeah.
So that was year 2 with those wheels.
Uh-huh.
And then there it is.
That's
in the ISCA magazine.
Yeah, that was on the calendar.
Now it's X-rated because it's got a woman in a bikini.
She's got a bikini on though.
Yeah. She does.
And this is a great picture of the swing out sidebars and all the finished welds.
103 hours on that because it was worth 3 points.
Yeah.
It was worth 3 points.
Street Machine magazine. Was that Australia?
That's Australia, yeah.
The car was everywhere. And Street Machine Nationals back then had a whole series of Street Machine shows. I'd go to, I didn't go to the East. There was East Coast. There was one in South Bend, Indiana.
Yep.
Street Machine, Du Quoin. The Fall National Show, we'd always go to that.
Springfield,
Missouri. We played volleyball with you. We'd always get in the volleyball tournaments. That's where we met our good friend Dave Patrick, and him and his wife were both in our weddings.
I love doing
we
all
played
that
volleyball.
stuff.
We had volleyball trophies. It's like those were right with the car show trophies as the volleyball stuff.
I would get up on the ladder and do the push rod. I mean, I had 2 little boys too, so like they'd always, want to do the games and all that.
And you're going to a show every weekend.
Yeah.
It gets boring just standing around. But here's a picture the next year of the soft
That was
flat,
90.
That was soft flat graphics on it.
I still haven't graduated from high school yet.
There you
At
go.
this time?
No, not 90. I
But
didn't
did you
graduate until
graduate?
93.
You went to Rova. No kid left behind. They let everybody graduate. Lori's pink bikini top again.
That soft flat come from all my friends, going to take the car, and I'm like, I'm not taking a 3-year-old car. I'm not. And
That's where Tim gets it. He'll
Yeah.
never go to another show.
I just didn't want to take a 3-year-old car and they said, come on, you got to. And I was like, I seen the salt flat truck, the S10, the black S10 with that salt flat deal on it. And I was like, I loved it. I fell in love with that paint job.
And you brought it back to Du Quoin in 90 with that paint job on it.
And that's it. Yeah, that's the first year.
It got it won Best Pro Street.
Yeah, won best paint. I mean, it like 3-year-old car when I redid it, just cleaned house.
And that is pretty much what it looks like now. It's not
It
here in the
does.
shop. You still own that car.
I do.
Is it coming out this year?
Not this year.
Are we telling anybody what we're doing to it?
Just,
I know what we're doing, but if you don't want to tell, we don't have to.
I'm just going to update it. Always wanted to put some shadowing, airbrush some shadowing on the salt flat graphics, but when it comes back out, it's going to be twin turbo with the Kinsler fuel injection. So yeah.
You tell anybody what you're doing to the suspension?
Just no.
So I know. But,
2026?
Yeah.
Here's a super rad picture in '89 at the Super Nats.
I always loved Canfield.
With your car and Matt and Debbie Hayes' T-Bird.
I only went to Canfield every other year because
I never made it to Canfield.
It was awesome because you had newer model cars with the touch of the older cars, but I never made it. I missed every other year because I was thrashing to get Du Quoin, so I had to skip.
And this is, CarCraft was the main sponsor behind, or the main title sponsor, along with General Tires. My buddy would always say, the ad that they would play every 3 minutes, sooner or later, you're old General. Because I'm not going to buy General Tires. 20 years later, he bought a set of General Tires for his trip. He goes, they were right. So this was epic. They would pick the cars and line them all up. You're back here.
Wally's original.
Yeah, this pink with purple Chevelle was Dave Whitaker. He ran the Winter Circle.
Dillingham's.
The Winter Circle parts store in Galesburg, Illinois.
Okay.
That guy was the coolest to all of us, pain in the butt little cars. That car ran, it cracked an 8-second quarter mile with a supercharged.
Wow.
It was all fiberglass. It was all full on race car stuff. That Dave Whitaker was like our local guy that was, 10, 15 years old, older than us, that would answer all the questions. That was the speed part. Every time you went into Galesburg, you'd at least have to go and hang out and see Dave.
He had to answer your questions. He wanted to sell you parts.
Yeah, and I bought a lot of parts there at Winter Circle. That location's closed, but there's still one in Peoria, Illinois, and Joliet.
So the story behind that cover was we were all back parked, and they had a new employee for CarCraft, and he come up to me and he said, "Hey, we'd like to put you on the cover of CarCraft." I just laughed. I was like, "Oh, okay. Where do I go?"
You're cocky, and it's like, again, in your head?
No, I didn't say nothing. I was like, "Okay." So anyway, I was like, "Where do I need to go?" And they, we went out on the track, and I was right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And wasn't Harry Hibbler, but it might have been John Diana. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, when the cameras come out, and somebody ratted me out, and they said, no, you can't be, no. So then they moved me back, and like, because of it, and if you notice, look what I did.
You turned your headlights on.
I had my headlights on.
That's Rocky.
I was the only one to have my headlights
So
on.
this car, this year, 1991.
Yep.
A little bit about Tim here. I won runner-up best GM in my 64 Chevelle.
Oh, cool.
I was 19, 20 years old then. And they wrote in an article, it says, "We've noticed a lot of skinny tire cars, and some of the skinny tire cars were just as good or not better than the Pro Street cars. My car was the highest finishing skinny tire car. It was not a Pro Street car."
There
But
you
I
go.
did. But it was participant vote, and I did have a good.
You had a good
I
crowd.
power parked. I
You
power parked that bitch.
You got a power park.
Yeah.
I was
But
still in high school.
These are really pretty cool. These pictures. There's one.
Still.
We talked about Alan and Angie
How
Johnson.
many years did you flunk?
Alan and Angie Johnson of Johnson's Hot Rod Shop, when they took their first, they did a street rod first. They did the same group for the cover of Street Rodder,
That's
and
cool.
their car was on the cover of that. And that.
I loved Wally's T-Bird. Yep, that's
So, yeah,
90 stuff.
There's tons of stuff. Sponsors thanking him, event stuff, and then when you would give your sponsors follow-ups. Instead of like an email or a social media tag back now. It's like, hey, this is what we did for the year, and
it's all posts and letters. I mean,
Phone calls.
everything.
Just so you all know out there, sponsors still like to get phone calls.
Yeah, Carrie runs a lot of sponsor stuff for a few big companies, and they'll get hooked up and they'll got a good program. Then the next year they come back to be on again, and she looks at you get on your Instagram and look at the hashtags, and it's like, no. It's like, why? She's like, you did 2 posts or no post. You still have
Not even just posting, because there's different teams. So on a sponsorship thing, you're going to have a social media team, and on that social media team, there's 2 different people that could be, for big companies, that could be working the Instagram, that are working the Facebook. And the person that
you're talking about me being
that would have
too big
been
for the chair.
epic if you would have felt
That would have been.
Would have been
But-
no surprise.
the person that might be making the decisions isn't the person that's monitoring those
Right.
social medias. You need to have relationships. You need to pick up the phone and you need to call people. You need to tell them what you're doing, and you need to have that relationship. That's the biggest thing. And
It's
that's
weird.
what
Like
you
currently,
do.
I have my Facebook stolen still. I have my shop page and the podcast page, but I have one company that we got to do in the next couple of weeks. Their year-end stuff. Of course, their marketing team for this big company is a younger based marketing team. I bet there's nobody on that team that's 30 years old.
Wow.
They only care about Instagram. On, hey, you give us all your numbers and your views and all that. They have never mentioned, since they've been that marketing team for the last 3 years, Facebook. No, Facebook still gets more. Yeah, it's based on
That's the
that.
thing, is you need to know your
I
company and you
couldn't-
need to do your research.
I couldn't believe what the guys were like. They said it's nothing for us to get 25. This was back in the 80s and early. It was nothing for us to get 50 calls a day of less people wanting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, and even, when I learned that, and I probably told you that at a young tadpole, you have to give your sponsors, you got to, they're not in the habit of just throwing away stuff.
Yep.
Give them something back.
I always say I'm not a big sports guy. I don't high five, and I don't allegedly like to shower with men, so I'm not big into sports and stuff.
Right.
And like, say you made it through college and stuff, and you got drafted, whether it's NFL, basketball, or whatever, but you can't handle the pressure when you get to the big show and you're benched, you're done the next year.
You're done.
So you still have to perform. You got to do your stuff.
Yeah.
And get out there and about. So, okay, so now we're the Pro Street stuff. This was really pretty cool. So at the Street Machine Nationals, you were involved in this. They did this mild to wild Ford F-150.
Well, that's how big it was getting. I mean, Ford literally give us a brand new truck to Pro Street.
Pro Streeted it at the Street Machine Nationals. Right. Graphics, tub, wing, hood scoop, the whole thing. So us normal people, we would come by and just watch, and every day and come by and sit in the shade or whatever and watch you guys work.
Yeah.
What year was that?
This
91 or 2.
I'm still in school, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally welding up those frame rails in probably 3 inches of water. It rains.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I got stuck that year in Chevelle.
Yeah.
So it says I'm gonna read it. 55-hour with all we had a bunch of people.
Oh yeah.
Mild to Wild project coordinated by Rick Robertson originally. Mustang was to be groomed over, but an F-150 was selected because of the large engine bay, easy access to the rear end and interior. List of manufacturers. This is how big this stuff was at the time. Weld Wheels, Nicky Thompson Tires, Beltec, Art Morrison, Curry Enterprises, MSD, Holly Edelbrock, Nitrous Oxide, Moroso, Hooker, Supertrap, Stoll, Harwood, Spectre, Mr. Gasket, Cobra Seats, VDO, Kenwood, Grant, M&R, VHT, Weenall, still one of the best polishes ever.
Yeah, it is.
Simpson, and Proformer. The volunteers consisted of, this is like a Hall of Fame list, Rick and Kara Doberton. Is it Doberton or Doberton?
I always just said Robertson.
Yeah. Jim Morris, Jeff Gall, Brian Lawler, Rich and Jacqueline Gephardt. I assume they built the tin work in it. They were great at tin work.
Yeah, I tell you, I did the rear frame rails in it, and then I kind of did my own. Everybody kind of, like Scott, and I know Bob, I know Scott, I'm pretty sure Bob helped in both years, but they did the graphics.
And you and your wife, did she actually help, or just?
She had me beers.
Ken and Jamie Faust, Larry Hall, Wayne Bushy, Steve Newcomer, Ian M. Grove, Scott Sullivan, Danny Taylor, Tim Balmer, Ron and Rich Hausman, Bruce McLeod, and a couple names I can't read here, but
I'm impressed you read all of that.
I know, but that's just,
good,
I mean, the crowd, it won't pick up on the camera. Look at the crowd as you guys finish this thing.
That's when it come out at the, well, that's another thing. There would be 2,000 people still for the award ceremony.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, nobody stays on Sunday anymore.
No one, they're all, fairgrounds are empty by noon.
Yeah. And then the next year you did one again, but didn't tub it, just lowered it.
All I did on that was, I put the hideaway rear tailgate hinge. I welded and did that. That was not really nothing big.
All right, Tim.
Yeah.
You can read that later. Let's keep going with
No, I was just seeing if there's anything else to talk about.
I'll send it with
I know, right?
you can read it out
So
from my.
So what do we go on to next?
We go to, this was towards the end of the Street Machine Nationals, kind of winding, the Street Machine Nationals in DuQuoin. We talked about the party earlier at the other places. I have no idea, I don't know if you've ever heard of numbers, how many state police officers they would bring in. DuQuoin is a small town. How many people is DuQuoin?
Oh,
10,000 people?
Yeah, 11,000 maybe, yeah.
And there was no, I remember it was a big deal when KFC came to there,
right.
Couple hotels, drove an hour away to get hotels.
I mean, carloads of Canadians would come to the show
Yeah.
and never even go in the show.
Did they speak Canadian or was they?
Everything was
To me, the problem was one of the biggest party schools in the Midwest is Southern Illinois University. My dad, so much so my dad would not let my sister go because it was known as a party.
I didn't really want my
It's a
middle-
half hour down the road from where Des Moines is. So those party people would come up. But on the good thing, on Saturday afternoon or Sunday, I still have a VCR tape. The most epic bikini contest that I've ever seen. I was never a Southern California mini truck showgoer, but these bikini contests were, I mean, it was clean.
They
The
were
ones
good.
at the show, epic.
But the
Just
ones
epic.
out
sorry,
on
sorry,
the-
Carrie.
The ones out in the shopping centers and the streets were way more epic.
I have some stories that I'm not going to
Yeah.
say of what I've seen on the streets at Des Moines. It was crazy. They rented out the movie theater and there was bikini contest in there. What was the Fantasy Girls from St. Louis?
Yeah, Jim's Fantasy Vans
Yeah.
would be there.
And it was just crazy. But
But they would come from everywhere, man. I mean, people would come down on Friday and Saturday nights and never even go to the show.
yeah, like I know street rod the next generation older than me, street rod guys, they just come down in their wife's car, or come into the show and party, and not even bring their street rods because it was more of a street machine
just
show.
party.
But I remember our Chevelle before we redid it in '91. That we were driving it. Me and my buddies came for a few years. I mean, every year we came, but we would park on the one end of the strip and walk because if you didn't do a burnout when somebody throws you, they might just stand in front of your car. They might throw beer bottles at you. These are drunken idiots. There was guys on motorcycles stuck in these traffic jams with, I seen this one time, girl in a bikini on the back. This drunk guy runs up, grabs her bikini top and runs off into the crowd. Here she's sitting on the back of this
At
motorcycle.
Decoy?
Oh yeah. I seen the craziest stuff and the loop on the party people up. I've talked about this before. During the day, allegedly, I seen people fornicating in tents during the day on the outer loop. I mean,
That's one of the reasons why they just got tired of it.
Yeah, there was I think it might have been the last year. The Walmart park did have a Walmart. There was
Story could be right.
2 stabbings in the parking lot at Walmart. It just you couldn't even get through the town because it was just people. So we would just park and walk, and then we'd stay out of town. We never stayed in town. Except a few years ago we
The
did.
year that we went last time that I remember was, I don't remember who was with me, but we were driving the pickup truck. And we literally rolled the windows up hotter than hell.
It was the peach truck, wasn't
But
it?
we rolled the windows up and we were just in conversation, would not make eye contact. And they were throwing beer bottles at us.
Me
we
and
wouldn't
somebody
flash
was
them.
in something.
I
And
don't
you
remember.
and, was it Christy and Jeremy maybe? And whoever you had,
It
maybe
was
it
two
might have been-
girls. I don't remember.
maybe it was Lisa,
Or
Patrick
maybe it was
But I forgot.
Andy and I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
but I remember
Anyway.
we were in something and we had a lowered square body back then with
Yeah.
custom paint and stuff on it. The old guy had to go
So
to the
hot.
bathroom, didn't he?
We just roll the windows up, act like the air conditioning was on. We didn't really have air
it
conditioning.
was just crazy.
So,
like
Carrie,
Rocky
were
said.
you still in high school?
I think I might have graduated now.
Yeah, I don't remember like that first year that you came. I don't remember. I don't think you ever came until we had the Pro Street 54.
I don't think so.
Which
I
you
met
would've
you
been-
when you had the 54.
Yeah,
That's
I
when-
think the 54 is probably
Which-
the first time I went.
You were 20 when we got married.
Yeah.
So we were doing the Hot Rod Indie show and all that stuff when that photo shoot was.
For some
that one.
reason, though, did I actually meet you at, for some reason, I'm thinking I met you at another show, like Des Moines or something.
No.
Was it
think
Des Moines?
I think Des Moines, I mean, I might have talked to you once at maybe an indoor car show, but I remember getting to know you at
Tim was
Des Moines, maybe in '91 when we had the skinny tire Chevelle. I think because then I built
What year was
the
it that your
54
mom
Pro
had
Street
her-
car after
that
that.
your mom had her accident on the horse.
It was before my Pro Street car because me and Dad drove
Yeah,
her,
you and your dad went down.
her Buick, stock Buick, and just parked it. And
I was just
parked my guys.
thinking the first time I seen the 54 was not at Des Moines. It was at another
It could have been
show.
Springfield, Missouri. It
Oh,
could have been,
at the-
You know what? It
yeah.
might have been Spring.
or it could have been at either this photo shoot or that photo shoot.
Indy.
the Hot Rod did that show at the Indianapolis State Fairgrounds. It was
That
a
might
Hot Rod
yeah.
Power Fest or something.
Well,
we had it there.
Well, that was when that Power Fest come back is after the rift between.
Yeah. And I says, I think that was the first time that you were allowed to go to a car show and stay overnight with me.
Oh, we stayed overnight.
Yeah. I mean, we had separate beds.
That's when
But I remember that
sophomore in high school.
I remember that was probably the event because that was.
I'll bet it was then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now before this car though, see now it's 91, 92, 90. Like Buick wanted me to build a Renault, a little they just come out with a 2-seater. And car
that little pointy nose, I know what car you're talking about, but yeah.
I can't remember. And CarCraft did a article and had some renderings, and it was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was just
Riata.
Yeah. And I just thought I could, and even to this day, I just thought I had did everything I could to like a new pro stock, pro street looking car. I just didn't feel like that I wanted to build another one.
This was the time, back in the heyday, it was Street Rod Nationals and the Des Moines Street Machine Nationals.
Yes.
They were the events to go to no matter what you're into.
Right.
And now, Good Guys started in 1984. And by this time, Good Guys is really getting some traction. The drag strip and IRP. So did that have anything to do with you? You built a
really
51 two-door Kaiser. Two-door Kaiser is really pretty rare.
Yes, real rare. What had everything to do with something odd was like Johnny Young's Nash, and Troy come out with the 60 Impala, which I always said it was Scott's 55, basically, and Troy just did it to a different body style.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Tim Strange's 54 Chevy.
No. It was just an odd. Tim's car was all you with your car. You did that. You took that old rod and custom, but really kind of did it pro street.
Yeah.
Which was kind of
I wanted to custom and I wanted to pro. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really.
And I think because it was kind of an oddball. I mean, it was a Chevy.
Yeah.
That's what we get.
But that's
photo shoots all day.
Oh,
getting 10 mag. That car.
Well,
was
you could
4
go.
magazines
You could go.
It was universal.
You always went both ways.
He did. He's always gone
just
both ways.
$20 is $20.
Yeah. But it was just kind of the odd, different cars, and that's
the Dare to Be Different was coming in big.
that Dare to Be Different was coming in, and
so how did you pick the Kaiser?
I started going through Hemmings. So I waited till 94. So I had built some cars, like I built a Malibu, got Best under construction, and I was building cars and painting.
What was the Malibu? It was like a 78, 80 style.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah, Scott Baldoff still owns that to this day. I sold it to Scott. But I was painting cars for people and just really not doing my own my own car. And I just started getting. I said, I think I'm gonna build another car. And I started looking at Hemmings and come across this Kaiser. No one had ever did one.
We talked briefly about how fast, like you built that first, the Grand National powered one. How long did it take you to build that car? When you build it, like
9 months.
You shut down you just built the damn car.
Yeah, 8 or 9 months.
And
the pink car was faster than that.
Yeah. And then the Kaiser was
about a year.
Okay.
But still a year.
But you were running your shop in there too at the time.
Still a year.
And this car, a square tube chassis.
Yep.
Also
stainless
and polished.
Which I said I'd never do again.
Yeah.
I actually was laying out the car. I had the mainframe rails in, and I just got to thinking, I was like, man, this would really be cool if they made it. And I didn't know.
And they did, here's one, and when it was in, that's Hot Rod there.
That's Hot Rod.
There's no front end on it, so you could see the polished chassis. And
Again, people can't see that, Tim.
yeah, well, that one's a.
Well,
they're getting bored because they're like, come on,
yeah,
share
you
it with
can't.
us.
Yeah,
you
you
can't really see that there.
Well, so I had the frame rails laid out when I was building the car, and I thought, God, this would really be cool if this 2x3 was shiny. And I was like, no. Well, then I thought, well, this would be a lot easier than a tube frame. So I called Marmon Keystone, a guy named Bob, and I said, hey, do they make 2x3 stainless steel tubing? He goes, well, sure. And I was like, well, how much? I'm like, how much is it a foot? Well, it was always, well, how much you need? Get a semi-load that's, nickel a foot. But I said, how long sticks are they? Well, they're 20 or whatever. And I said, probably 3. He goes, I don't know what it was. It was like $25 a foot or something.
It's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. And I was like, well, you answered my question. Okay, enough of that. So the next afternoon, I get a phone call, and it's Bob. He goes, hey, could you use some drop-offs? I'm like, what? He goes, I got a deal on some 2x3 stainless drop-offs.
Which drop-off is some fab shops doing it.
Yeah.
They buy a big stick, they cut off whatever.
I said, well, how long are they? And he's like, 10 foot. And I was like, yeah, I don't have nothing on a car frame.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, I bought extra. He goes, well, and it was like $20 less. It was like $5. I was like, hell yeah, I'll take those. He goes, well, we got them. And he goes, how many you want? I said, well, listen, I had to, because I still needed 1 by 1 and a bunch. I said, let me get a full order. So, because they brought it down on a semi. But here was the problem later on that I found out, that it wasn't 304 stainless. It was 316 stainless, which has a high amount of nickel in it. And I mean, it was a nightmare to polish it because it was so hard. I mean, but to this day, that once you do polish 316 stainless,
it stays polished.
It stays polished. It's still to this day.
So this car was big block, dual Paxton superchargers. So here's one of the flyers for it, right down here.
Yep, that was the Performance Corner Kaiser.
So explain the Performance Corner. I know Performance Corner, like a lot of normal auto parts stores, they had a Performance Corner. Like, oh, here's your Holly,
and
your
that's
Edelbrock,
exactly
all that stuff, your Earl's fittings, your nitrous, and all that stuff.
So what Performance Corner was at the time, there was no speed shops in your small town anymore. And like I used to love to go to Decatur, Illinois, Klatzbecker Speed Shop. That's where I bought that first set of fitting RT wheels for my very first car. So the business model was 3 warehouses across the country. Aerospeed warehouse out of Kansas City, Competition in Long Island, and there was another one out in Seattle, Washington. All separately owned performance warehouses. They come together, they hired a guy, they called it Performance Corner, and what they would do would set you up a display, a POP, a point of purchase display, and they'd put you like a corner in your auto parts store, or they'd give you a 10-foot section. You could buy,
which now you go into like
and
most
they're still
O'Reilly's,
yes,
behind the one part of the counter. Here's your kind of performance stuff.
And I'll tie Riley's into this story. So that's what they did, and they set up with their fastest moving items, maybe a few autometer gauges, maybe an MSD box, some plug wires, some different things, and you could set up how big of area you wanted. Well, Lincoln's Auto Supply here at my local hometown went on board with the Aerospeed warehouse to do Performance Corner. And I went to school with one of the Lincoln's daughters, and she reached out to me, and Larry Lincoln said, "Hey, we'd like to do some. Are you building? We'd like to do some sponsorship with you locally." From there, that got Aerospeed Warehouse out of Kansas City in on the deal.
Mm-hmm.
They set up. I went in and did a meeting with a guy named Ron Copenhagen from Aero, and the Lincolns. There was about 4 people in there and me, and they wanted me to build a truck. And I said, I can't. I'm in the process of building this Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them about it, and one thing led to the other. And then, as far as I know, I was the first Pro Street car to get a $20,000 check to build a hot rod, and it'd be mine.
Say that again for everybody.
I got 20 grand in 1994.
That's a lot of money back then, man.
I
lot
just
of
graduated high school.
She's only a freshman then.
Which we were talking about. She worked at Taco Bell as assistant manager out of high school. She brought a brand new Chevy Cavalier.
Yep.
That car cost less than 20 grand brand new.
I
So
got
that's how much 20 grand was in this era.
I got 20 grand for a sponsorship deal to build the Performance Corner Kaiser, and with that, I toured. I did 74 shows
Jeez.
in 95, 96. I did 74 shows, and then
Indoor and outdoor shows.
indoor and outdoor. Plus, besides the check that they give me to help me build the car, then they paid me every event. And then Soft Seal, the guys at Soft Seal, I did events for them, and they'd pay me for indoor and outdoor events.
I remember the one event. I don't remember where it was. Street Machine or Street Rod Nationals, maybe. That you had sponsorship from Ball's Power Windows,
I did.
and it was like, yeah, you can be in the booth. This is what I always remember. They're like, okay, so we're going to have this known famous car in the booth. But since it was a mechanical power window, you took the door panel off and detailed everything in there. So they could show people of that other stuff in the car. I always thought that was one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
And like, that isn't something you surprise them with that. They're like, oh my God, Rocco went above and beyond.
So the thing was, my car was too new.
Yeah, because there was hardcore 48 and older only.
And I was a 51, and I had so when I reached out to Balls and we worked our deal, both of my doors all by remote.
Mm-hmm.
Both my doors would pop open. My driver window. So there's 2 things. They had just introduced their 7
remote button.
7 remote button. So both my doors popped open. My driver's window would go up and down. So there was 4. My trunk would go up and down. There was 5, 6, and then then I had 7. I can't remember, but yeah, I did. So you're exactly right. I had actually forgot about that, but it was big. And I had a lot of fun with the remote.
And on this flyer, you got Paxton Superchargers, Holly, and DuPont Chroma Base.
Yeah.
So obviously they stepped in. And at this time, you're building a car. Like we said, you got the check, but you could just call up anybody and say, hey, here I am, I'm building this car. We've been blessed to be like that with a bunch of cars that we've built. You get this relationship, you perform like we've talked about. Yeah, everything you've been building has been winning awards, being on all the coverage. So it makes it easier after that. You've
absolutely.
proved yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, at the time, I reached out to GM Performance Parts, and they wasn't too big on it. And then they decided, well, at the time so they're selling all these crate motors, mm-hmm. the 502s, the ZZ4s. So what they did, and with a little help from the guys at Buick, with giving me mm-hmm. some good creds on it, but what they did, they thought, we're selling these motors to guys in Camaros and Novas, mm-hmm. and that's not a problem. We want guys in Fords and other vehicles to mm-hmm. buy our crate motors. So that was the idea. So General Motors sponsored me. They sent me the 502. And then, of course, I didn't want just to put a stock 502 in there. So I'd seen a Paxton supercharger a few years earlier on a green 69 Camaro up at Canfield, and just loved the car. I actually can remember walking Jeff Smith and Scott over, and I said, "You got to look at this car. All this is under the hood," which just fascinated me. And but I'd seen those Paxtons, so I called out to Paxton and talked to Granatelli and said, "Hey, I'm building a 502." I said, "Can I do 2 of these?" He's like, "Oh, what?" And I was like, "I want 2." He said, "Can we do it?" And then so they jumped on board. So yeah, I had two superchargers on it.
And I rode it. I remember you loaded it up. It was Street Machine Fall Nationals in Springfield, Missouri that year. And you loaded it up before the awards. You drove it back to your hotel and you're like, hey, you want to go with? So
right.
I left Carrie at the show and I rode with you. And I can say that thing it went down the road very well. Yeah. And it got with it, man.
Oh,
it got with it. Did you ever run that at the strip to see
no,
what it do? I mean, it was a heavy, big car, but
it flew. I mean, it would. A buddy of mine clocked me at 130 one time on his Mustang, and I just hit the gas and just smoked.
So what was the event that here's a hot rod coverage?
Well, that's the
you
first.
You were doing that's the
first power tour.
The first we talked about that with Sullivan.
Yeah.
They did that one tour to Vegas, and they called it Power Cruise or Victory Tour. Then the next year
was Brandon Hot Rod
Power Tour, which a lot of you people know or don't. Carrie works for the company that runs with Motor Trend Group that. She's registration manager for the Hot Rod Power Tours.
Yeah, I don't guess I knew about the one that they took off from Indy and went out to Vegas or whatever.
It wasn't actually a power tour. They called it a different.
I think it was Victory Tour. They called it or something
like that. Yeah.
So that was the year before this. So
yeah.
And other cars here they're talking about here the Rad Rides still dare to be different. The 60 Rambler wagon was that same summer.
I'll tell you how so much different. We all had CBs. This was 1995. We had CB. If you look real close at that picture, you'll see an antenna, a magnetic antenna on top of my car.
That's awesome.
We had yeah, you can see the base of it right there.
Yeah, we were talking on CBs. That's crazy.
Did you have cell phones yet then? 95, maybe a bag phone?
In 92, I got my first Motorola bag phone. But
it's the size of a Yeti cooler.
It was like that.
Yeti cooler.
Yeah. It was like that.
Yeah, our niece, she can't remember the time that we didn't have cell phones. She's, 26?
Oh, yeah.
When we had a bag phone,
I can't
she was little, then she was 2 or something before we had a phone. And
right.
She just always... Well, how did you get a hold of people? You called and left a message or a note with their mom and dad, and how'd you meet up? Hey, we're gonna have pizza at 7. You showed up at pizza at 7.
Did you ever have a pager?
No, I wasn't a drug dealer. You had a pager?
Well, I wasn't a drug dealer, but I had some other dealings.
He was a businessman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good feature there. Wheels magazine. Wheels, was that German?
I was German.
Yeah, very good picture of the motor and.
Yeah.
So where is how long did you tour that car around? So you did a bunch of indoor stuff and a couple of years you toured.
I probably had that car 4 years, 98.
Because I remember you coming into Good Guys Indy at the drag strip there, and again Rocky's always like the pretty ladies, and going to like more of a rod run based crowd. Rocky was just kind of like I don't know, man, so.
Oh, So what you're getting, I guess, so with my touring, with DuQuoin, so the partying and then the fun at DuQuoin kind of fizzled down. And with the Kaiser, I started doing good guy events. And it just wasn't fun for me.
And you did a lot of feature car, ISCA stuff.
Did a lot of feature ISCA stuff. And I was just kind of getting over it.
And again, back there in those days, I mean, ISCA is still good. The Detroit Autorama, they have the point series.
Yeah.
But man, in the 80s and 90s, the ISCA show circuit, man, people spent a lot of money. You used to, if you were the overall points champion, there was individual classes, which there still is, and districts. I remember John May, because I did a social media post, he ended up with a little John Bachero Willys and won the ISC championship. Well, he won, I remember, a black Pro Street 40 style Willys. He won the ISCA championship. I remember reading about it in the magazine. He got either a new Mustang or a new truck, a brand new vehicle, plus some money to win the ISCA championship.
But the traveling and that, them guys would spend just. And I never, like, I was building street, that wasn't my deal. So again, it all went hand in hand. Like how Buick helped me because the Pro Street was big, how the Pro Street like got Carcraft and Hot Rod. Well, the ISCA knew that was the hot ticket.
Yeah.
And what was so perfect was like when I would debut a car in June, well, the magazines would hit about November. Well, and then, or maybe like December. Well, that was right at the beginning of indoor show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like,
come see the latest car magazine.
Yeah, see that was a big line on the radio. Yeah. See the pages of Hot Rod and Carcraft magazine come to life.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I would be.
And here's a CarQuest Autorama flyer right there, that red one.
Yeah, that's what's
and
that?
It's
Buffalo?
Got 40th anniversary Autorama.
Yeah,
Buffalo Convention Center. Nova Hot Rod Magazine Street Machine of the Year. That was
Rick's first.
Doverton.
Yeah.
Doverton's next car. Your Kaiser. Come see Ned Jarrett, Auto Sports Racing announcer, and then Sting from All Star Wrestling stuff. I mean,
so what I was told back then was that wasn't a car show; it was an event. So what they always wanted to do was get something for the kids because they knew the guys were going to come to the show.
Yeah.
This I can't remember which promoter told me.
They always had like Playboy girls there and all that.
And you had to have something for the kids. You had to have a Victor from Young and the Restless.
Yeah.
You know, you had something for everybody to do.
I remember that time when the wrestler guy. We were at Detroit Autorama, which it's a standalone show. You don't need all this other stuff, but they do to get everybody, not just the car people. But whatever wrestler was there was like 3 wrestlers. It wasn't somebody as big as Hulk. And sorry, John Borcher from Good Guys. I don't know all my wrestling people. But the line went around that whole man. It was
go around the whole convention center.
Yeah.
And like the Power Rangers or you know, just they wanted something. It was so you brought your whole family. And
we know a guy that he was an ISCA show guy, and he figured out that somebody was sick. And he was the same size for the outfit. He dressed up as the guy from RoboCop.
Yeah.
He was RoboCop for the winter. He's like, hey, you want to do this? You're here anyway. He's like, yeah, and I got paid to be. You got paid to be RoboCop.
I want to tell you, to this day, those guys on those motocross bikes rolling around in those
BMX guys
in those circles and that stainless bar or whatever. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that crazy.
Here is Austin Robertson, 4 of Albers. How old is Austin now?
30, about 32, 33.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, boys, we've been going a long time.
Yeah.
That's almost 2 hours. We got just a little bit. The notes are getting short here.
So
this was, I remember reading this. This was text and photos by Gray Baskerville, magazine legend. So was this your first outing with this car?
It was.
Yeah, because here you are, you're hanging the hood while the magazine.
Gray flew into so Kaiser was just about done. That show at Indy when they got back into the car show game, and Gray flew into St. Louis, and I went over and picked him up.
And here you are.
Yeah,
I assume Gray is here after you picked him up at the airport. There's no front clip on the car, and then you're hanging the hood. So he probably showed up and was like,
that wasn't up like the night before. Me and my buddy Kevin was making the exhaust, welding up cutting and welding.
Why wouldn't you?
And Kevin cut himself real bad, and I went in and woke up my wife, and she come out and stitched him up, and we kept on working.
There he was on the cover of the official event video of VCR. Kids looked up what a VCR is. You still got that cassette someplace?
Yeah, I got. That was the footage from the first power tour.
So then, how long did you keep the Kaiser? You finally found it last year someplace, and it's in a collection someplace.
Yeah, I found it a
Lost
couple
it
years
for a while.
ago.
Did you sell it shortly after a couple?
I sold it. So then, like 98, I started getting into boats.
Mm-hmm.
Found something to
Another sickness.
fill my void.
Which are still,
Yeah.
but it takes you longer to build a boat because that boat has
But
been
I had-
under construction for a while. But he's building this boat. It's got 2 big blocks in it, and it's all color coordinated. It's neon green, and he's building his boat like you got other boats,
Right.
and you got rental properties in the Lake of the Ozarks,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to tell everybody
There
that,
you go.
give yourself a plug if you want to rent.
If you want to go find out what the Lake of the Ozarks is all about, reach out. I got a nice big condo that I rent you.
Which a lot of hot rod people have stayed there.
Yeah. I just I got a 38 Scarab that I'm building, and I'm just trying to take, smoothing the motor and air. I'm just trying to do hot rod style to my boat motor and build my boat similar to just what I enjoy, the look that I want, something different.
Annie has figured out that the ladies love a boat. They love
Yeah,
it.
they do.
So then there's another car that was well known. Our good friend Billy Wooten, which some of you guys, Tri-5 guys, Billy actually helps at the Tri-5 show, put on all the judging and the awards section, and also at the Triple Crown rotting.
That's the last time I seen Billy.
He had this killer 65 Chevelle, which is now owned by
Sean Kinsey.
Yeah, which he had the Beretta for a while, got rid of it and got this. This was an all turquoise car, then one year freshened it up with the bubbles, so it's known as Bubbles.
Yeah. That all come from a
late
night
would
at
say
Hooters.
It's cooler than the 65 Chevelle that me and my dad built. This is a full 2 chassis car, hammered on the ground, motor sticks way out.
Billy did a good job.
So as Kerry's wanting to wind this down, you've done some other cars. There's been Pro Street trucks in here that you've worked on.
Yeah.
You've had a couple other cars. You got a 58 Biscayne. Did you end up selling that you were going to build?
I haven't sold it yet. I'd like to sell it. Everybody wants a slick old patina.
And then you had another big old GM something 6061, didn't you? A hardtop that you had for a
I
little
got a
bit?
66 Chevy too that's partially under construction.
I thought there was another big, or maybe you sent me a picture. You were looking at one, but
Yeah.
every once in a while you get the urge to build another.
I had the urge.
Do you have that urge anymore?
I had it after the Triple Crown for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, that might have been when you sent me a picture of it. I was like, oh, this would be cool. And,
I just,
so you're saying you don't have another polished stainless chassis yet?
No, I don't think I'm too old. I
No.
can't. Like those not going to sleep for 2 or 3 days at a time and doing that as
man.
well. I really want to get my boat done. I do have a couple of car projects in mind, but I leave a car show and I think, man, I got to do this again, and then I go to the lake and I forget about cars.
We miss seeing you at the shows, but one of these times we're gonna take you up and go down for the weekend in the lake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
You're
it would
always
be
welcome.
fun. So anything else you want to add to wrap this up? You want to thank somebody? You want to your buddies, your customer, your buddies that always somebody you leaned on whenever you were hanging a hood at the last minute?
Now, my main guy over the years was always Kevin Rogers, who helped me. I met him at the building of the Mild to Wild,
Mm-hmm.
and then and Kevin was a big part of me building the Kaiser, and I lost him back in 18. He passed, but Kevin was a lot of props out to him on building that last car. But just guys, as I mentioned earlier, like around the neighborhood and people that Dave. If I didn't mention Dave Redmond, he was one of the older guys down there. He was always a big influence for me, and it just hit on all cylinders. Is I've been pretty lucky. I have a lot of people that support me to this day. As far as me being able to keep my little shop going, and I still enjoy doing what I do. So
a couple of years ago, I didn't make it last year. The Street Machine Nationals was in DuQuoin again. You're still selling merch and T-shirts to the First Street guys, and
I got a little T-shirt business I called it Thelma's Garage. It's kind of a quirky name. I'm just doing a line of some different designs and just try to help offset some of my travel monies all, and it's went over pretty good. I get a lot of demand. I've shipped shirts from Australia to England to everywhere, so that's kind of a cool little thing. I don't put much time in doing it.
So where can people find your shirts out at the
bottom? Just get on either any of my Facebook pages and reach out to me. The best, Robertson's Auto Shop, the one behind us here, is always good. Just PM, private message me.
So tell everybody what you do now. You're still running the shop, or sitting in the shop right here.
Yeah, sitting in the shop. I pretty much do what I want to do. I'll do an insurance,
as you always have.
Yeah, pretty much. But I sell a lot. I level up and lift a lot of Jeeps and trucks, a lot of wheels and tires packages. I still do some custom paint work. Still do a few insurance jobs. If somebody wrecks their car, I'll still do those.
And you're what, half hour from St. Louis, right?
Half hour from St. Louis. No, I still enjoy coming in here every day. Good health.
Unless it's good boating weather.
Yeah, I kind of cut back on that this summer. I didn't go boating as much. I'm trying to get it done with some of my own projects. I kind of finally figured out that if I'm out having fun all the time, my projects don't get done. Yeah. So I'm trying to get those done. So, I'm glad you guys come up. It's always good seeing you, especially during the holidays.
You got any more questions, Carrie?
I don't. I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for us, because we've learned a lot from you, and you took Tim under your wing many years ago when I was still in high school. Yeah. And
how many times? This is a drinking game, everybody.
How many times did I say
if you go back and listen to it a second time, drink every time you hear Carrie say, "I was still in high school."
I still haven't figured out when she graduated.
I don't know that I did.
But Rocky asked her, and she never how many years did you fail? So super senior times 3 or something. I don't know, but yeah, I want to say thank you. We do this podcast kind of a selfish. I am a fan of people. I'm a fan of builders. I'm lucky this is my 30th year running my hot rod shop full time with my great wife helping me. She's also in the industry, doesn't really get to be in the shop anymore. We get to interview people that we look up to and honored to call friends. Honored to call Rocky a friend. And again, absolutely. I can't thank you enough for, I don't know what you've seen in me. He might have, allegedly he drinks a little bit, so he might have been really drunk. And I was the only one that would listen.
Never went away.
We got there late to that party that
year. You had a cute girlfriend.
We blew up the tow vehicle. We unloaded it. We drove our Pro Street down when people weren't really driving a lot of Pro Streets then. Yeah. And got the party late. So maybe everybody was done listening to your stories and you were still ready to talk. But I really appreciate you showing me. I still do stuff that you taught me back then on like a lot of the stuff that we talked about, the promotions and doing what you said you're going to do.
You've really taken it and run with it. I went to raising 3 boys and being coach and kind of got away from it. And
did you have to wear those spandexy weird coach shorts?
I didn't have to, but I did.
Yeah, I got one of my best friends from Illinois. He was coaching. I'd always send him, "Are you wearing these?" He goes, No.
No,
I need one of those pictures.
I was a coach out there in the pink,
pink running shorts.
Yeah.
Checking out all the moms in the stands.
Board shorts. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So again, one more time, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Just go to my Facebook page, Robertson's Auto Shop, and hit me up.
Buy some Thelma gear from him.
Just say hello. PM me.
So again, thanks, Rocky Robertson, for being a guest on the Strange Motion Way podcast.
Thank you.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by Royal Purple Synthetic Oils.
Royal Purple premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance in all conditions and provide cleaner operation, better mileage, and decreased oil change frequency. That means less oil changes. With products available for your gasoline and diesel engines, Royal Purple is the obvious choice for your performance needs. Drive with Royal Purple, the synthetic expert.